Oh, hi everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this May 12th, 2019. You'd think otherwise by the way some of the weather has been in parts of the Northeast today. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms that are watching tonight. And I know for the regulars, I've been gone since Wednesday was the last live stream. This is really the first chance I got to just kind of sit down and do some weather today. So appreciate that you guys have sent me messages missing the live streams. This is going to be another iffy week ahead because I've got some traveling back to do. I'm in I'm in northern Georgia right now, in Atlanta, and it's in the 60s and low 70s here. We had some downpours on and off today, along with some breaks of sun. Typical spring day here, not a typical spring day up in much of the Northeast. Snow today in parts of elevated areas in upstate New York. Chuck Cardillo, our resident at 2,800 feet in the Catskills, saw some snow today, as did parts up further north in upstate New York and in Vermont. Mount Snow, 5 inches. I saw some shots from the Berkshires. People having trouble with their cars driving. Just amazing. And yet at the same time, when we take a look at the temperature profile, you're going to see that you go north and outside of where this first wave has had impact, and you've got temperatures in the 60s and 60s on the other side as you go further south where the wave has had less impact. So I'm going to bring up the temperature map first and foremost because I think that really is the standout. And I'm sure when this is all done, calculated today, in terms of the average temperature, this is going to be probably one of the coldest mom days that we've had in years, and in some places might be ever. We've got these are 6 p.m. temperatures. When I pulled up this map back 3 hours ago, these numbers were actually the same, or even in some instances a bit lower. But look at these readings that we're seeing. I don't know if you can see them clear enough, but everybody in New Jersey down to northern Delaware, all of Pennsylvania, of what's visible, are all in the 40s. You move to Long Island and you've got temperatures down in the low 40s. You head north up into Connecticut, 39 at Waterbury, 40 at Providence. They were 39 an hour ago. They actually went up a degree. Low 40s in the Hudson Valley, upper 30s, 37 at Monticello, Albany at 45, and across Massachusetts, it's in the upper 30s and low 40s. Now, as I said, as you go further north up into New England, now this is where there was some sun, and these numbers were actually higher earlier. We had temperatures up in the upper 50s to around 60, and that 30 is more than likely Mount Washington. 30 degrees there, a dew point of 19, a wind chill of 19. The wind is east-northeast at 15 miles an hour. So you actually have visibility of 120 miles, believe it or not. So there isn't too much happening up at Mount Washington at the moment. But the sun to the north, you start even seeing there's a 61 there. I'm not sure what town that is in Canada on the other side. It's to the east of Montreal. And of course, you start to push to the south where there were a lot of clouds. You had 50s. These were 60s earlier in parts of Virginia, but they now have seen their temperatures settle down in the low 50s as the wave has gone by and a cold front's moving through. And then you head down into the Carolinas and you start to see temperatures in the mid and upper 70s. There have been showers and thunderstorms that have gone through the coastal North Carolina where there was a risk of severe weather. And then you take a look where I am, and we're in the low 70s. Atlanta right now at 73, and it's mostly low 70s with a few upper 60s in northern Georgia. And throughout the Ohio Valley, you go further north, you've got temperatures in the 60s and 70s, 60s up through Kentucky, 60s into West Virginia. But really, it has been the area from northern Maryland, northern Delaware, up through much of upstate New York and through central New England that really has had a ton of impact with regards to this particular weather system that we're dealing with. Here's what it looks like on the surface map tonight. And of course, you've got a surface map that is a winter weather lover. you would really uh, die for. This was a really good surface. I just updated it now. The latest map is in the 21Z from 5 o'clock. You've got a high sitting in eastern Canada, higher pressures all across New England. You've got a wave, a low in southwest Pennsylvania, another low that's developing east of the Delaware coast. This is taking the first area of rain out with it. And we've got another shortwave trough that is swinging in from the west to bring a second wave that's going to go by in similar fashion to this one, which means that you can expect a repeat performance tomorrow with regards to the weather conditions in the rain and in the colder areas. Wouldn't be at all a shock to see maybe another round of mixed precip and some wet snow coming down, particularly in New England later Monday night into Tuesday as that second wave develops and moves on out toward the northeast. Now here's what's left on the radar with the first round of rain. And this time of year, you get an onshore wind, you get rain falling, and that's going to keep your temperatures down. Clouds will do it as well to a certain extent, but if there's no rain falling, it'll solar radiation to get through. You do have to get the temperatures to bounce up, unless there's a screaming wind from off the ocean. But the rain just kind of counteracts that completely. And we even have some bands of moderate rain now moving out of southern Rhode Island into southeastern Massachusetts. The back edge of that first area is approaching New York City. It's outside of Philadelphia now. It's to the east of Philadelphia and moving to the northeast. So we're going to get rid of that. And then we've got the next short wave, and you're starting to see some rain getting generated from that system. And you can see the twisting here with the precip that's in northern Illinois. So that's another short wave that with a little bit of punch to it, and you can expect that rain to move in tomorrow afternoon. Meanwhile, in the southeast, where we had a slight risk of severe weather, much of it now is offshore with some strong thunderstorms well east of the Outer Banks, and we just had a batch that moved off the Georgia-South Carolina coast, and there's another batch that's off the Florida coast, Florida Panhandle, and we've got some big cells from looks like Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach on northward toward Daytona. Those are moving out to the east. And as we widen this out, a little bit of action in the southwest, down in Arizona and New Mexico and West Texas with some showers. That's setting up for tomorrow's round of severe weather. Otherwise, conditions in the west are pretty quiet. We would expect that to be with the trough in the east and all the action going on in the eastern United States. Here's how it sets up severe weather-wise for tomorrow, where we have a slight risk back in interior parts of Texas, marginal risk out to the coast, and then you've got a band of marginal risk across central Florida. Otherwise, the severe weather risk tomorrow is relatively minimal, general thunderstorms on up the Atlantic coast. That second wave doesn't look like it's going to really trigger off any severe weather. You've got drier, cooler air that's actually coming down around that low into North Carolina, except for the coast, South Carolina and Georgia. So there's no thunderstorm risk being indicated for much of the Ohio Valley and everybody east of the Mississippi, again, except with the exception of the very immediate Gulf coastal area. So let me bring up the I'm going to bring up the paint box here, and we're going to take a look at what's going on with respect to the upper air. This is, I guess, what you would, there are so many different ways that you could get these lows and highs to orient themselves in the upper atmosphere, but the important features to recognize is the fact that you've got this blocking high sitting between Greenland and Labrador. You have an upper low out in the Atlantic east of Newfoundland. You've got an upper low sitting in central Canada. And here's your the short wave for tomorrow. Fairly strong trough there swinging around that is coming around the upper low to its north. You have the system in the southwest here that is producing the showers. And you've got a little bit of ridging out on the Pacific side. It's not a lot, but it's enough so that you are causing this trough to dig down a little here in the eastern states, and it just swings right through. In the wintertime right now, we probably would be dealing with some kind of winter storm impacting much of the area that got impacted today with colder air in play. Nothing ever translates exactly the same. It's hard to take something from one season and sort of move it to the other. You can only guess what might have happened, but certainly if you want to seasonally adjust how far below average we are and everything else and kind of match it up, it would certainly suggest that this pattern in the wintertime would be one that the winter weather lovers would be jumping up and down for. But again, it is May 12th, so there's not much you can do with respect to that. So let's take a look at where the pattern is going to be going forward. We talked about the notion that in the springtime you get these blocks that set up and models in the wintertime they like to show blocks form, and they more often than not do not, at least as far as the ones in the North Atlantic are concerned. In the springtime, when they do occur, they just really tend to hold on for dear life. I'm going to, before we even do the map, let's bring up the teleconnections and see where they're going. And again, here's where, from day to day, we've seen the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, back about a week or 10 days ago, forecasting it to go back to neutral and then to positive. Instead, the snapshot for earlier today keeps it not strongly negative, slightly negative through the forecast period, occasionally getting close to the neutral line, but they're all negative readings for the next couple of weeks. And in the meantime, you're getting support from the Pacific North America Index, ridge in the west, trough in the east scenario. That is helping to drive these weather systems eastward. The EPO, interestingly enough, which has been running strongly negative for quite a while, actually goes weak to somewhat positive. So that may offset the impact of the NAO to some extent. I think what we'll probably see is at least some days later this week where we will see general improvement, but the trough in the east, ridge in the west, plus the NAO is also going to mean that we're going to be dealing with systems coming down from the northwest flow in Canada, and you get these fronts that'll go through, probably triggering off a couple of showers, and perhaps at some point we're going to set up with an onshore flow again as we head toward next weekend and beyond. Hard to say exactly how it's going to happen, but when you take a look at the upper air on the GFS, you'll notice especially up near Greenland and in northern Canada, you still have higher than normal pressures there pretty much right through the forecast period. And even though you're probably going to occasionally get an attempt of a ridge building in the east, that's at the high levels of the atmosphere. The negative NAO would suggest that you probably will have some kind of a cool high in Canada creating the onshore flow. In the meantime, by the way, as we go through this week, you're going to notice on the left side of our view here, the Pacific jet gets very strong and starts sending systems in toward the west coast. So that might make for occasionally active severe weather periods going through the next couple of weeks, particularly late this week as a trough swings out of the plains. You can see it there swinging up into the Great Lakes early next week, and yet another one that follows along about an hour at May 21st, 22nd. And then, of course, you get toward the end of the period. It's hard to know how this is going to play, but the model does continue to show higher than normal pressures up by Greenland and across the Arctic region. So you got to think that there still will be some troughing to deal with in the eastern part of the United States. So let's take you through where we're going here as far as the next couple of days are concerned, because we do have the next wave that's going to be moving through for Monday. Here's how it looks right now from the GFS's perspective, roughly right now, an hour from now, with that low south of Long Island, probably somewhat breezy along and just offshore. That low moves out to the east. Here comes the next one for tomorrow. You got that, remember we showed you on the radar, you got that twisting area of precip. That's that upper low that is swinging through northern Illinois. You get a little low there up in northwest PA that gradually redevelops off of New Jersey, Long Island tomorrow, with some rain coming in during the afternoon into tomorrow night. And there's your batch of snow that even the GFS picks up on in parts of Maine and northern New Hampshire there, with a less than with a 1,000 millibar low southeast of Cape Cod by Tuesday morning. At this point, this looks like a shot of rain that lasts won't last as long as this one did. Coming in during tomorrow afternoon or late morning in eastern PA, and then moving out by Tuesday morning. The problem is the upper trough is going to take a while to clear out and move through. So you do see the model showing some patchy precip there at times. So there'll probably be little ripples running around the upper low, and you'll get a couple of scattered showers with that. Looks like a little patch there Tuesday night, and then maybe again later on Wednesday. Here's one Wednesday night into Thursday. You've got what actually is a weak cold front moving through Thursday morning with a few showers, and another low that gets spawned with that and gets taken out to the east. And yet another front comes through late Friday into Saturday. Now this is one where you got to watch to see whether it sets up an onshore flow later next week or early next week. I think you're also going to see, if you look out in the west, with this western energy beginning to come in. It's been relatively quiet in the west, but now you're going to start to see that Pacific jet sending weather systems in. So weather's going to be increasing through California and on up into the Pacific Northwest. We've got a low late this week moving out of Colorado and into Nebraska. So likely they'll probably see some kind of severe weather breaking out from this toward the end of the week and into the weekend. And into the Northeast, are we going to wind up seeing models trend further south with these lows when you still have a sense of blocking going on? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing I can tell you is that it seems like it's going to be a real struggle for the next week to 10 days to get more than a day of no rain. Now, you might not get much rain when it does happen, but as far as trying to string back-to-back days of nice weather, it's going to be just very, very difficult to pull off in a pattern like this. Just to show you on the upper air, running back. So here's our upper low for tomorrow and Tuesday that moves through upstate New York. You see how slow it is to get out of the way. I mean, here we are Wednesday morning, and you've got a wrapped up upper low sitting off the coast of Maine, and another shortwave trough that comes in Wednesday night into Thursday that dives on the back side of it and comes off the New Jersey coast. So you got to watch for that to see if you wind up getting a little more precip than advertised, and then that drops out. Now, you head toward the weekend, you start to get into more of a ridge position. But again, the question is, this is at the high levels of the atmosphere. What are we going to look at the surface? Are you going to have a high centered up in eastern Canada with northeast winds pushing down? It might be a situation where you, like we had the other day, where dry air from New England and from eastern Canada pushed down far enough south so it keeps the weather relatively tranquil going in through the weekend. We'll have to see. I'm going to lean a bit optimistic. But you also could see all this energy coming into the west, into California, and then swinging into the Rockies and Plains. So this is going to perhaps cause some severe weather. Nice looking ridge there by the middle of the week of May 20th, sitting in the southeastern U.S. Perhaps we could get some warm weather out of this for a day or so. That'll be something to look forward to if it winds up verifying. I'm going to take my first look at the European, which I did not look at today. And you know, here's the problem I can already see with the European. Now here's your your short wave that comes through for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Not as deep as the GFS is with the system that drops down Wednesday night into Thursday, but there's still a short wave trough there. It pulls that out, but it doesn't really develop much of a ridge here in the east late in the weekend or early next week. And in fact, toward the end of the period, you've got a strong upper low there sitting in eastern Canada with a strong northwest flow coming into the U.S. This might be dry. The ridge is out to the west. This might be a drier flow for that week, but it also may be cooler than average. But I think if we could wind up trying to put together back-to-back nice days, we'll take that. And of course, you can see the European, also like the GFS, swinging what looks like rather potent weather systems out into the western half of the United States and in the Rockies. I wonder if this winds up verifying whether there might not be some late season snows for the Rockies, with the trough in the west as deep as the model, as the European is showing it. Very interesting weather times that we are experiencing, no doubt about it. And I'm also happy over the fact that I wasn't sure how my signal was going to behave itself tonight. It seems to be behaving itself quite well. So that's a good thing. Nice to see a nice crowd on board today. Those of you watching, appreciate it. Johnny Quest, you probably missed out on most of the rain today. I would think most of it went by to your north, and oh, you did get a fair amount. Okay, I stand corrected there. Matt Coletta, let's get some good PGA weather. Agreed. I've got some posts on my website. I'm going to lean optimistic for the PGA stretch from Thursday through Sunday. Not that there won't be any showers, but there will be. I think there'll be more dry periods than anything else. It's just going to be a bit on the cool side, depending on the sea breeze and how that behaves. If we could manage to squeeze that out, at least if it winds up being that we don't get continuous rain like what we're seeing now and again on Monday, that will be a big plus. And Scott Briller pointing out that yes, the average first day in Central Park is June of 90 degrees is June 3rd. So there's still plenty of time for that to happen. At this time of year, by the way, even in a pattern like this, if you get a short break and the right setup, you can go to 90 in a hurry here. And I did right. You're hoping for Tiger Woods to. I'm not a big golf follower. I hear it in the news and everything else, but I'm not I don't play. I always said that there's always one frustrating sport per person per lifetime. Mine was tennis for many years until my back and my knees said, no, you're not doing that. Jason Schaefer, nice to see you on board tonight. The polar vortex is mostly dissolved. Correct, Timothy Veltman. So no, we're not in a polar vortex. That's correct. This is, yeah, you're right. That's a great observation. This is just, we're flushing out what's left of the winter cold from the colder regions. That's exactly what we were doing. And this happens every spring, just to a certain extent. Granted, right now we've been in this blocky pattern for a month. It started around mid-April, and it might last another couple of weeks. Eventually, it's going to shift or break down to a certain extent. It's that it's lasted as long as it has, and in the springtime, things just take. You get into these patterns; they just lock in for a while, and they take longer. It can get very frustrating. If you're in you can be in a good spot in a block and wind up with sunshine day after day after day, but not in this particular situation. We're going to hold on to this however long we hold on to it. Yes, Scott, David, you Schwartz, you planted your stuff. You'll be fine. Your plants are going to love the good soaking, and then the first warm day, they're going to explode quite nicely, and you'll see growth come fairly quickly. This Mother's Day, this is the worst Mother's Day ever. If I'm trying to remember, a couple of years ago, I think we had a day where it poured rain pretty much all day, and then maybe the sun came out in the last few hours, and the temperatures popped up into the upper 50s to around 60, but that was just a matter of good timing. But yeah, this has got to go down as probably the worst, with temperatures not getting out of the 40s and an average daytime temperature of about 44, 45 in most places. That is awful. Snowy 23, you posted a video in the Poconos looking to the foothill of the Catskills. If you posted it on YouTube, let me know where, and I'll gladly share the link to everyone. Okay, you can message me via Facebook, or I don't know if you'll be able to put the link up on the chat. It might let you, it might not let you, but if it doesn't let you, just send it over to me and I'll send it along. All right, so okay, Michael Lazaro, I'm hearing rumors. Where do people hear these weather rumors? You sit around in bars, like just gossiping about weather? I don't know. I, that the weather will be hot in the Northeast. You know what, as I have said many times, I'm not a long range guy. It's not really my thing. If you get if the North Atlantic Oscillation stays negative and the other things change on the Pacific side to a large degree, that can lead to hotter weather in the eastern part of the United States. But I'm not going to venture to say whether that's going to happen uh, from what's going on right now. And I don't know who's spreading these rumors. Yes, Robert Smith, I see that you're watching, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you. I'll probably have the furnace on through the middle of June, says Steely Dan. A lot of folks did comment today that they did have their heat up. Hard to believe, but yes, I'm sure they will, and the heat will be on for tonight and for tomorrow and tomorrow night as well. All right, folks, let's call it a night. Game of Thrones is on in a little while, so I'm sure the Game of Thrones fans will be running, and that gives folks about an hour and a half to watch this YouTube show before the numbers go down and everybody flocks over to Game of Thrones. Okay, no guarantees from the management. I will try to do a live stream tomorrow. Tuesday and Wednesday may be travel days, so I think it's going to be probably a no-go on those days, but you never know. But right now, well, let's shoot for tomorrow. We'll play it one day at a time, and we'll take it from there. Once again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms that are watching. Hope everybody had a great Sunday, and we'll see you tomorrow.